Good afternoon then, everybody, and welcome to Scrutiny Committee. Okay, Willie, I'll hand it over to you to do the roll call.
Okay, thank you very much, Convener. And firstly, I'd just like to remind everyone present that these proceedings are being recorded, the recording of which will be placed on the website of Dundee City Council for public viewing. That then takes me on to the roll call, and I would ask if members would confirm they're present when I call their name. Bailey Keenan.
Present.
And I've received apologies from Bailey Wright, and I believe that Bailey Cruikshank is kindly attending as her substitute. Is Councillor Cruikshank present?
Present.
Yeah, thank you. Bailey McPherson.
Good afternoon, present.
Yeah, thanks. And I've received apologies from Bailey Scott. I understand also that Bailey Roberts has submitted her apologies, and that Councillor Mills is kindly attending as her substitute. Is Councillor Mills present?
No, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And I also believe that Councillor Ilnakla has submitted her apologies, and that Bailey Soares is attending as her substitute. Is Bailey Soares present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Black.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Councillor Short. Is Councillor Short present?
Good afternoon, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes you back to the agenda, and the first item is declarations of interest, and it's whether or not any members have any declarations to the content of the agenda as it stands.
Seems not.
Okay, thank you for confirming. There be no declarations then. That then takes you on to item 2, the summary of external care inspector inspection reports for local authority nurseries, May 24 to February 25. And I believe that Paul Fleming will be here to speak to that item.
Thank you. You want to say a few words on that, Paul, then, before we go to questions?
That's great. Thank you very much, Convener. So item 2 is the summary of external care inspector in evaluations over the year. This report presents them for 4 local authority nurseries which were during this time period, building on the report that we put forward last year. So Minas Hill, Balgay Hill, Ballooneyfield, Sanders Nursery Class. All settings were evaluated as either very good or good across the 4 quality indicators. Almost all were very good. That's the quality of care, quality of care, play and learning, quality of the setting, quality of leadership, and quality of the staff team. Notably, there were absolutely no requirements or any areas for improvement identified at all. And obviously, they match the services self-evaluations and improvement plans as well. I would say that the findings reflect the services and indeed the settings themselves, strong strategic leadership and commitment to the high quality early years provision and the effectiveness of self-evaluation and staff development processes, given the consistencies we see across these 4 settings, but indeed over recent reports, as you'll remember from last year as well. So I do have the Strategic Education Manager, Leslie Gibb, here, given that there's 4 nurseries, Leslie here to represent the service if there are any questions. Thank you, Convener. I'll stop there.
Okay. No sure, unless Leslie, you want to say something, because I mean the reports are excellent. It'd probably just be saying pass on appreciation to all the staff that are involved in that, and obviously as councillors and taking the role as corporate parents, we want to see children and young people getting the best out of the local authority and everything that can deliver for them. But I'll let you speak if you're going to, Leslie.
No, just to say thank you, and I will certainly pass on your thanks to our settings. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Bailey McPherson.
Thanks, Convener. Just to really concur with the points that you made there, really, there's only 2 words you can say in relation to that, and they're very and good, aren't they? Because it's very good, it's really very largely all round, and I think we owe the staff at all 4 nurseries a great debt of gratitude for a job well done. So very grateful if Leslie Canish indicates, let them know that the members of the Scrutiny Committee are delighted with these reports. These are absolutely excellent, and it's really heartwarming to read the feedback. So grateful to all of them for the hard work that makes this sort of very positive outcome possible.
Great stuff. Okay, don't see any further questions or comments. So was this report agreed? Okay then, Willie, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, thank you. Takes you on to item 3, Education Scotland visit, Harris Academy. And again, Paul Fleming will be speaking to the item, which is for noting.
And obviously, Paul, another good report.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, delighted. Another very good report. So this report obviously outlines the findings from Education Scotland. So different inspectorate, their inspection of Harris Academy, which took place in February 25. And as you'll see from the report, the school was evaluated as very good in both the quality indicators of learning, teaching, assessment, raising attainment, achievement. And this was obviously another short model inspection. And we've obviously reported as leaders in the service our disappointment sometimes with the short model inspection. And this would be another one where we do think we would have seen it if those rare better than very good moments. But the inspection team highlighted the aspirational, authentic leadership of the head teacher who's on the call, Mr. Miller, who hates when I read that sentence, but it is really important that we do so. The calm, purposeful learning environment and the strong relationships between staff and young people. The Harris Pledge was commended as a model of practice that supports both academic and wider achievement, and it permeates the full summary of the inspection as well. I would like to add, if it's okay, and again, to embarrass my head teachers on the call, but I think in a particularly significant development, and I did receive a copy yesterday, notably the head teacher didn't share it with me, but the Chief Inspector of Education herself wrote personally to the head teacher following the publication of the inspection report. And in her letter, she offered obviously her warmest congratulations. She described the inspection findings as a real credit to the head teacher's leadership, but the commitment of his whole team. And I know Barry would be the first and want us to talk about the whole team. That's the leadership team and the rest. She praised the school's empowering leadership, its focus on ambition and employability, and a calm, purposeful learning environment, and really importantly for us, grounded in the school's values of respect, equality, enjoyment and achievement, but yet really talked about the strong relationships across the board, including between staff and young people. It is a kind of a rare and significant honour. I would say it's not often the Chief Inspector writes to you, certainly in such a positive manner. The school's improvement plan aligns with the findings of the inspection and will build on these key strengths with a continued focus on feedback and attainment. Lastly, while I don't have the data, I would just say in my role as Chief Education Officer that this would be one of the best inspection outcomes across the country over this academic session. It's been really challenging in the secondary sector. We see that really within neighbouring authorities as well, but across the country in terms of getting really good evaluations following inspection at this moment in time in Scotland. So a real credit to the school, to the community, and to the wider network of school leaders who support all of our schools across the city as part of every Dundee Learner Matters. The head teacher is here, as well as the chair of the parent council. Thank you.
Obviously, you should hand over to the head teacher if you'd like to say a few words, and even for the parent council, I've seen they've come along if they want to say a few words about it. It's an excellent report, and obviously congratulations on getting a letter from the inspectorate in high regard. So we don't get many of them, to be quite honest, so a real bonus and a real credit to the school and yourself.
Thank you, Convener. I'm the Chair of the Parent Council, Murray MacLeod. I have actually worked in the education sector for a number of years, just recently left Dundee City Council Education Centre sector to actually go and work for the Teachers' Trade Union, the EIS. So I actually am quite embedded in the education sector. I feel that one of the most positive aspects, in my opinion, of the whole report and the school is the fact that the strength of the school is that the young people, in my opinion, are the most important voice in the school, and that is embedded sort of upward leadership from the school management team, that the young people are the most important voice. So, for example, in the recent appointment of the new school captains, the most important voice was the current school captains in making that appointment. And I think that is model practice that should be used throughout the country. So I would embed that as a model practice that other schools should follow, and would pass that on to any other schools. I am actually now moving on from the chairship because my daughter is leaving school. My son has got a good apprenticeship, which has been probably through this school because his technical teacher actually encouraged him to go into joinery. My daughter is going on to get to college to do dance, which was basically embedded through the PE department in this school. So they have got positive destinations from the school, and positive destinations is what the school embeds. So thank you to the school for what they have done for my children, and probably for every other child in this school, and the inspection focuses that. And thank you, Barry.
Thanks, Murray. Convener, I would only want to say thank you for the kind words, and also to make it very clear this was a team effort, a team from the whole school community to get the report that the young people of Harris really deserve. Thank you.
Excellent news, and for the Parent Council point of view, I wish your family well moving on, and every success to them both. Getting an apprenticeship, something that's kind of it's made me never be rich and never be poor. So it's kind of delivered the wage on my working life. So, and praise to you for day job in education and coming back and doing a voluntary bit on the school board as well. So it's no something that you would normally do. I'm sure that your young lad's not going to want to volunteer to do too many hanging doors where he does them all day at work, you know. But however, I'm standing to your elbow, and I wish you well moving on.
Well, he's actually doing it in a Dundee school that's getting built at the moment, actually.
Very good. Excellent. And they do, you know, over the years be backing out some of our schools as repairs happen. So anyway, I'll pass you over to Billy McPherson, who's looking to make a comment and ask a question as well.
Thanks indeed, Convener, and thanks to Paul, to Murray and to Barry for their input there. Maybe just place on record grateful thanks to Murray for all he's done as the Parent Voice chair. You'll be missed at the Parent Voice meetings going forward, Murray. I've been on the council a very long time, and I can genuinely say I think this is probably the best secondary inspection report I think I've ever read. It's absolutely superb. And although I know Barry, and rightly, talks about the team effort, because the senior leadership team and the staff do an absolutely excellent job at Harris, there is no doubt that, and the report alludes to this, that Barry as head teacher has made such a positive impression on Harris Academy, and what must be coming up for 10 years now, Barry, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously, Harris is the secondary slap bang in the middle of my ward. Obviously, I had a long association with the school. And I completely concur with all the comments that the inspector has made in relation to the strengths of the school, being the head teacher, the staff and the young people. And I think the Harris pledge getting a particular mention, I think, is very worthy. You always know when you've got, now Paul knows this because I've said it before, you always know when you've got a very good report, because the areas for improvement all say continue to do this, continue to do that, and there's a significant amount of that in this report. So I just think it's absolutely excellent. I'm delighted that the Chief Inspector has recognised what Barry has achieved at the school. Could I just ask one question? It's one of the areas for improvement, and that's about the whole school tracking process into the broad general education to replicate the success of the senior phase version. Could Barry maybe just give us an update on how that has actually gone?
Yeah, of course. So Dundee, all Dundee schools are moving to a new tracking software package that's been brought in. So we are going to fully embrace that as our tracking process. But I think the more important part is not really about the mechanics and the software that does it. It's about the conversations that teachers have with the young people in their class about where they are in their learning and what they need to do to get to the next steps. The inspectorate talked very positively about how we do that in the senior phase. We've been waiting, and probably waiting too long, to get in place our tracking process so that these conversations could have a bit more impact. So that will be up and running for August.
Yeah, that's absolutely super. And thanks again for a wonderful report. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Short.
Thank you. Barry knows I already appreciate this because I sent an email when it came out, because little known fact, Barry and I were at the Harris at the same time. Unfortunately, I was in 6th year when he was in 1st year, just to age myself. However, I just know that there's something special about that school. My niece, my nephew, my son, we've all been through it, and those positive destinations have come, and it's great to see that it continues. I was going to mention George Galloway, Donald Finlay, Ken Gilds, but I thought I might just take it down a whole rabbit hole that's completely different. But I'm pretty sure that the generations that are coming through now will be equally proud to look back on the Harris and the things that we're doing. And thank you for keeping up the good work, and to the whole team as well. It's most appreciated.
Councillor Black.
I'm not going to lavish any more praise on the Harris. You've had enough. It's a very, very good school, and my own children went there. How can we ensure? I mean, the trouble is, because it's such a star, everybody wants to go there, and as councillors, we get people who are denied placing requests at the Harris because there just simply isn't enough room. How can we spread the achievements and the learning of the Harris across the other schools in the city so that they get the same reputation and get the same kind of reports as you have got?
Paul, you'll take care of that, yeah?
Yeah, thank you, convener, and thanks, Councillor Black, for the question. It's a really important question, and it's one that probably deserves a really quite well delivered and long answer and discussion and debate, because it's quite a multitude of things you do. One thing I would pick up on there what Barry said was around the tracking tool and all Dundee schools. So that is recognised before inspectors come, you know, through the individual school self-evaluation and our own. So we're doing that across all schools. So we have Every Dundee Learner Matters, which was implemented at the start and is evolving, and Barry sits on the Every Dundee Learner Matters strategy group, which is around sharing the best practice but also seeing we need to improve. Barry has worked, like Sean on the call, with other head teachers who go and visit each other's school, support and challenge each other to pick up learning. Barry will be the first to say that he has learned from some of these other visits and put things into his school, which have helped get this inspection. What I would say, so we have a clear strategy around sharing that practice across the city, you know, and I will then come in and say, so you've given me the opportunity, that we have had 5 inspections from His Majesty's inspectors this year in a range of primary and in secondary, but primary have included some nurseries too. And all evaluations have been good, strong goods, and very good. And that is a really, really positive picture. We can start to see the impact of that learning. But my last point would be people have views, so I can't comment on whether it was really effective back then, Lynn, or indeed through all those different periods of time. But people have views, and people hold on to a reputation which maybe doesn't always follow through what we see in attainment, because I think it's important not to take away from the strategy and the leadership of the leadership team and the improvements that the current leadership team has made in Harris Academy. We do have other schools which have that reputation, and that is replicated in attainment, and others which maybe have, and we're not seeing that in attainment. So people will have their views about schools, but we certainly have a clear strategy about how we want to get them all to very goods and excellence. Councillor Black.
Thanks very much, convener. Thanks, Paul, for that. My visits to Baldragon, and particularly Baldragon, actually, have been really encouraging and constructive. And yes, I think it'd be good. Yeah, I think they are. I think the schools are learning from each other, and I'm quite confident. And actually, I get quite excited when I go to Baldragon because it does have a very positive atmosphere there. So yes, if they can get the same reputation as Harris and improve attainment, then wonderful. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that then. There doesn't appear to be any other questions. Can this report be agreed? Okay, thank you. We'll move on then, Willie.
Okay, thanks. I take you on to item 4, Education Scotland return visit St John's High School. It's just for noting.
Again, Paul, you want to say a few words first?
Yes, sure. Thank you, convener. Excuse me. So St John's had their original inspection visit in 2022, not long after this current substantive head teacher had arrived, and started to put it in place quite a significant strategic improvement plan. Irrespective of the reputation, the improvement that was needed to be had, and the head teacher set about doing that at the time. So this report summarises the further visit, because that inspection at the time found the evaluations to be satisfactory. I think what's really clear from the follow-up visits is that the inspectors have found significant improvements across all previous evaluated indicators. They have said consistently the school has developed a strong culture of improvement, and that's critical to what Councillor Black had asked about, that really learning from each other and always want to improve. Really enhanced leadership at all levels. Again, Barry's emphasised that, and not just about the head teacher, particularly in secondaries, and improved learning and teaching. Research will clearly tell us the biggest difference will happen in the classroom. And notable progress also includes better tracking of ASN, significant levels of additional support needs, improved learner engagement, and real improved inclusive ethos because of the difference that's making in the classrooms. And obviously there are areas for continued development, as they are in all external scrutiny activities, indeed internal as well, and that includes continuing to strengthen self-evaluation, data literacy. I know Councillor Black's interested in that, and learner pathways. But the inspectors have confirmed no further visits are required, and they recognise the school's capacity and leadership from Mr. Hagney and his team, with their capacity for sustained improvement. And as I said, Mr. Hagney is on the call.
Yeah. Mr. Hagney, you want to say any words before we open to questions?
Just to say that the follow-up inspections were initially unexpected because they don't normally follow a report where satisfactory is found across the board. However, it was welcomed, and we have been on quite a journey since then, looking at our improvement priorities and how we demonstrate that improvement, because that seemed to be the particular issue of the inspector that we were dealing with. So that helped us to focus in on our school improvement planning, our data, and on how we express and share that data to evidence our improvement. So that really became almost the issue for the inspector. But we managed to improve our processes, and we then had a very, very positive experience with the last visit, where he was more than a little enthusiastic about all the progress that we had made. And that original visit, I think, in terms of context, was the first full inspection in Scotland of any secondary school coming out of COVID. So it was in very, very challenging circumstances. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Billy McPherson, going to comment on the question.
Yeah, thanks indeed, convener. It seems to be good news all around really today, thus far anyway. But obviously delighted to see this frankly very positive follow-up report, and I think it pays testimony to the hard work that Sean's put in since he came to St John's, and his whole senior leadership team, because quite clearly the whole culture of improvement has been recognised by the inspectors, and that's really, really positive. I have one question, and that's about if Sean could give a little bit more information about how you are helping learners who struggle or fail to engage, because I noticed the bit in the report about Lindor's House, which has been established to specifically target pupils who find difficulty engaging with the school. And I was just really wondering if you could give some more information about the size of that and how the curriculum's enhanced and so on to try to actually engage with pupils who have had quite clearly difficulties engaging with school up to now.
Okay, so we have had a lot of interventions looking at partners and trying to engage young people. But we created Lindor's House for a specific purpose around presence, which is one of the key priorities within the education service, for those young people who are not engaging at all, or those who are present within our school but not engaging. So they're not present, not engaging, present but not engaging, if you like. And so we've been looking at our own services, drawing on our PEP funding for some staffing and resources, but also looking at partnerships like the Dundee United, for example, community, do work with some of our young people for a soft start to try and begin their day and make sure that they're engaged and stay on task. We've also done some outreach using our own learning support staff, going along to Lochee Community Hub and one of the local libraries for some of our young people who just will not enter the building, to try and get them some basic qualifications, working with them. We've been the idea of Lindor's House and trying to focus things around that is trying to concentrate resources so that we can use resources as efficiently as possible, so we can work with more than one child or a small group of children, rather than spread things across, which can be more costly. So trying to be more efficient, more organised. It's also about how we are using our staff. So a deputy head oversees Lindor's house, but and works very closely with the head of support for learning. And we have a guidance teacher who is just focused on these, I suppose traditionally we call them high tariff young people, so that we are then sharing best practice. And so we're not having lots of different approaches to dealing with non-attendance or non-engagement, but we're actually having a single approach, and that's always focused as well on positive destinations and making sure that we're getting it right and getting it consistently right for young people who are finding it difficult to engage with learning within school. So there's a lot going on in it, but it's really about trying to bring it all together and give young people an identity and a sense of belonging, even sometimes as they reject that sense of belonging and they reject school. But sometimes we really need to dig deeper into the why of that.
Yeah, that's very helpful indeed, Sean. It's it's obviously vitally important that, if you like, no child is left behind, and obviously appreciative of all the efforts the school's making in that respect. So grateful for the feedback.
I suppose the comments that you've just made there, Sean, highlights what a diverse issue being the head teacher of a secondary school is. And Paul, I suppose for yourself, I'm wondering if you could perhaps draw together some of the best practices that go on in relation to kids that are refusing school, and maybe bring something back to the Scrutiny Committee to give us an overview of what's going on, what's happening. I know that many years ago they used to have a panel that they brought parents in and gave them a bottle of telling off, or it wasn't a very fair panel. If you presented well, you never got that telling off. So it would be useful to have some kind of understanding brought back for us, just to understand some of the difficulties that go on within the schools. Would you be able to do that, yeah? Paul?
Thank you, convener. Happy to look at how best I do that and present you committee with that information, elected members that information.
Okay, Councillor Sawyers. Billy Sawyers.
Indeed. Thanks, Billy Keenan. I wonder, I guess Paul's not going to have information to hand, but I wonder within the report you're talking about that could come back to scrutiny, if there is, I suppose, research looking at the impact of social media on pupils' attitudes to schooling, or I hesitate to use the word authority, acceptance of norms perhaps, and if something along those lines could be included in that. Sorry if that sounds a bit vague, but I think there's a wide recognition of the impact that social media can have in society. I'll try not to be biased in my comments.
I suppose we'd leave it with Paul to come back on that, if that's possible. If that's the driving factor in no being at school or no engaged as you should be, then I suppose it's the bit we'd want to hear in that report, isn't it?
Yeah, happy to look at that, Billy Sawyers and convener. And there is obviously in the latter points there is social media. emerging research is what we would call that, in terms of the what is recent in terms of research purposes, the impact of that social media, particularly as young people have had it all of their lives. With just a couple of key points in a Dundee context, we're certainly looking at plans of our Dundee's Educational Psychology Service, which is obviously within my service as well, really looking to see can we do something more locally around following the impact as we move towards having that consistency around mobile phones and use of those, but particularly around social media. So we do have plans in place. We are looking at an attendance summit at the end of August around improving attendance, and that will look at the different factors behind poor attendance. And as Sean mentioned, there's we talk about our 3 Ps: presence, progress, and participation. So presence is about school attendance, but it's, as Sean says, we have a lot of young people who go to school but they're not engaged in learning, and so there are different reasons for that: social media, online gaming, screen time, and a multitude of reasons. So happy to look at that. I'll discuss with Audrey and her team and come back to you around the best way. It may be something that we're already bringing, if you like, to Children, Families and Communities Committee around some of that wider work, but happy to do that, and I'll share that with Willie, if that's okay, convener, around our approach to doing so.
Yeah, and it's obviously, if we could share whatever information with the rest of the committee, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that the reason for me kind of asking, well, Sean raised the issue around refusers or people that aren't quite engaged with education as they should be, but it was a member of the children's panel that mentioned to me there seemed to be an increase in people that want to engage with the school. So it'd be good to have an understanding of what we do now, given that I can recall when there was this no very pleasant committee that they dragged parents along to, and some got a telling off and some didn't, because it was a bit inconsistent in its approach. However, if we can get that at some time, that'd be great. Sean, congratulations to your staff on bringing the report up to where we've got it. It's great, and appreciate the effort that you're putting in and your staff are putting in the schools across the city, and in particular at St John's. This report agreed? Okay, thank you for that. Willie?
Okay, thanks, Steve. So on to item 5, Care Inspector reports on children's homes, and I believe that Paul Fleming will be speaking to this item, accompanied by Alison Penman as necessary.
You going for it then, Paul?
Thanks, convener. So obviously this report provides a summary of Care Inspector inspections, but this time it's for 3 of our services and council's children's homes, so Gilburn House, The Junction and Foresters House. Similar to as we've done for the early years, Glenn, Alison and the team are now looking at doing a summary of the Care Inspector evaluations over the years, so it presents a more holistic overview report, given that the Care Inspector inspections happen much more frequently than the education ones. The evaluations reflects what is a mixed picture, but overall a positive picture. As we can see, Foresters House achieved very good across the quality indicators evaluated, reflecting a strong culture of nurture and trauma-informed care. Gilburn House maintained good ratings with minor areas for improvement around quality assurance and staffing, and The Junction did experience a decline to adequate to this particular point in time, and that was really due to challenges around matching and risk management through a particular challenge around a young person, but the inspectors did acknowledge absolutely in the report the complexity of the context at the time, and Alison can talk about the quality assurance and the risk management and other steps that have been put into place, because what we can absolutely say, and Glenn has reported as a chief social worker, and as we've seen through internal evaluations, is the improvement plans are in place, very clearly supported by leadership development and a new very clear team around our team around the house model, which is helping almost like that schools, that sharing of strong practice and learning from each other through every Dundee Learner Matters. And as Willie said, Alison Penman, senior social work manager, is here, who can talk into detail if you have any questions.
Okay, we've got Billy McPherson then looking for to ask a question. I'll go there first then.
Thanks, convener. It may well be that Alison can provide the sort of information I'm looking for, which is really, obviously, the Gilburn and Foresters House feedback is obviously very reassuring, and we're conscious of the fact that although the grading of the junctions declined, it is still deemed to be adequate. My question's really around the what Paul alluded to about the being, if you like, immersed in caring for one young person with high levels of, if you like, complex needs. And I'm just really wondering, I appreciate numbers here are quite small, but I'm just really wondering what outside support can be given to the junction in these circumstances, because quite clearly that one situation, if you like, may well have impacted on the overall grading and indeed the overall service, if you like, to other users, given the intense work required with one young person. So I was just really wondering if Alison could sort of expand on what support can be given to ensure that the junction can ensure that all the young people there are fully supported.
Alison?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. I can confirm that the situation has moved on significantly since inspectors were here back in January and February. For further context, the difficulties and challenges were in relation to one young person in particular who was displaying behaviours that were extremely challenging due to very traumatic experiences in his background. But that did closely follow another young person who had been an older young person, but who had also displayed very challenging, quite violent and aggressive behaviours as well. So there was almost an accumulation of circumstances which resulted in the position that we had. We are looking at not just a team around the houses, but city around the houses. Part of our improvement work going forward will be to look at what other council departments can offer to our children's houses in relation to community learning and development activities, neighbourhood services, remembering we all have an equal corporate parenting role, and we want to think more about what are the supports and activities that we can put in around children. We're already working closely with education partners in relation to our inclusion strategy and how we can look at different types of education for our children in our houses. And we've also done some work with the police to look at police responses in terms of really challenging behaviours and developing relationships with children out with times of crisis so that we can foster that strengths-based relational approach to our children.
Just to say that's both a comprehensive and reassuring response, Alison, so I'm grateful to you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for that response as well. It sounds like quite innovative work going on to resolve problems, because obviously it would be nice to think we can flood the place with people when it needs it. Probably resources get a bit tight at times and makes things like that a bit difficult. So appreciate the efforts that people are putting in. And doesn't appear to be any other questions on these reports. So with that, are they agreed? And Alison, if you could pass on the thanks to the staff that are involved in all these areas, it's clearly appreciated. It's that we're doing what best we can for the young people of the city.
I will do, and just to say the junction is having an open day on the 10th of July. If anybody would be interested in attending, we would be happy to extend an invitation to councillors.
Well, thanks very much for that. We'll see if I could fit that in. If you could maybe get somebody to send an email out as a reminder, that'd be perfect. Okay, thank you. Is this report agreed? Okay, then we'll move on again then, Willie.
Okay, thanks, Tisha. On to item 6, Fire and Rescue Quarterly Performance Report. We've received apologies from Area Commander Brian Todd, and Area Commander Mark Lloyd is present to speak to that item. He will provide a strategic update to the report prior to Paul Robertson taking through the performance report. We also have as an observer the Dundee Community Action Team Leader, Watch Commander James Hay.
Well, I'll pass it over to the Fire Brigade then, and you could give the overview, and then we'll open up for questions if there's any.
Thanks so much, Convener. Nice to see you, Convener and Committee. Obviously, I'm not normally in front of this committee at all. I'm based up in the Highlands, but currently I lead our strategic service review, and particularly our strategic deployment of assets. So our service delivery review, it's called. So I'm really just here to talk to you about this, which is a really significant point along the journey that Fire and Rescue Service has been making over the last 12 years since it became a single service from the 8 legacy services. So I head up a team that's been looking pan-Scotland to understand what does community risk look like now and into the future across Scotland compared to what it has looked like historically, and then how does that impact on the locations of our fire stations and the number of resources within those stations and how we crew our fire appliances as well. So it's been a massive piece of work that started back in 2019, and we're now kind of coming towards the end of our public consultation phase. However, the most important part of this is now the public consultation itself, which is open today and is going to run for the next 12 weeks. This started a year ago when we started looking at our pre-consultation, which you may have been involved in, which was shaping our future service consultation. Since then, we've had hurdle criteria workshops in which we reviewed all the options, potential options for change. And then we had a balance room session in Stirling back in April, in which we kind of scored all of our options as well. So it's been a massive piece of work for a good number of years, and I would really urge everybody to get involved. So what's going to be happening locally is that anywhere that there's a change proposed, we will be having public engagement sessions. So 2 of the proposals that we're bringing forward both involve Balmossy Station. So we're going to be holding 2 public engagement sessions, both on Tuesday the 12th of August, one in the afternoon at 2 till 4 and one in the evening from 6 till 8. And what will happen there is we'll have a team from Scottish Fire and Rescue Service who can take all of your questions and answer them in relation to the changes that we're proposing. It's certainly not something for this scrutiny session, I would suggest, because it's something that needs to be given its due diligence and attention, and we're more than happy to spend time with you during that session and individually if there's individual queries dealing with them. But what I would like to draw your attention to is that we've just recently on our website, just today, we've just published all the details of our consultation. What I'll do is I'll put the link in the chat so everybody can access it. I'll just put that in now. But what that does is it provides an overview of what the service delivery review is all about. There's a video clip from our chief. It talks you through why we need to make the changes that we're looking to make, and it urges people to get involved in the public consultation. And there's a link there to the survey which is being produced. And there's lots and lots of background information for those who are interested. Lots of attached documents as well. So before you come to us and ask any direct questions, please have a look through that first. There's a frequently asked questions section which should address a lot of your queries, but if it's something more detailed around about the proposals for the Dundee city area, then more than happy to answer those either through the sessions or through individual kind of queries that may come through. I guess that's all I've got to say, apart from that. I guess in terms of the public engagement sessions, just to say that those are going to be independently facilitated as well. We've got an independent facilitator coming in for those sessions, so it's not going to be run by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. You know, we're keeping ourselves clear of that, but we'll be there to answer your queries. So that's basically the big strategic overview of what's going on, and as I say, big day for us today in terms of that public consultation launch. Have to take any queries about the consultation before passing on to my colleague Paul Robertson. His locally, just let you know as well that so our staff are key assets to the organisation, and so there will be direct engagement. There already has been direct engagement, but with further engagement with the staff who potentially could be affected if either of these options come to pass. Happy to take questions now.
Okay, I'll open it for questions in a minute. I just should probably point out to you that Dundee City Council took a view that we didn't want to see any dilution of service at Balmossy, given that there is probably more houses built in the area than there was when the last time where there was an attempt made to close the doors on the place or dilute the service in any way. So, no doubt people will have a look at the material that you've put out there and no doubt engage further in the public consultation as well. But I should just flag to you that was the decision that the council unanimously took. So
thanks so much for that, convener. And yes, I was aware of that, and we're more than happy to take information from people that will help us make a good decision about the way forward.
Okay, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I think you were trying to fool me. I just looked for Dundee on the list and couldn't find it because it's down as Balmossy / Kingsway East. So there's the first thing that might trip us up. The other thing is, we obviously had the letter back from the chief executive, so we've got that on file. So we know that the council's decision is going to be taken into consideration. But can you just confirm it is possible to sort of go in and only look and comment on Balmossy rather than having to go through the whole lot and give an opinion about everywhere?
Yeah, so the online consultation has been written in such a way that you can just dismiss the elements that you're not interested in. So yeah, I can't imagine you're too interested in things that might be happening in Shetland or in Glasgow City, but yeah, you can concentrate on the elements that you're interested in.
Perfect, thank you.
Billy McPherson, sorry I missed the earlier one that you'd posted, Fraser.
No worries, convener. Mark, I've got a little bit of a concern about how this process has actually happened today. I emailed Brian Todd last week on behalf of my group. One member of my group in particular, because he represents Broughty Ferry, has a particular concern, as does, I have to say, there's a great deal of anxiety in the community about the proposals to downgrade or close Balmossy. So I had emailed Brian Todd just in the past week to say, you know, what can we have further information on the timescale for the launches consultation. Now, I appreciate he's on leave, and I did get a forward then email to the emails on out of the office, and Alan Lowe, who I think deals with the Angus area, kindly replied. He said that the consultation would be launched towards the end of the week, this week, and the elected members would be advised. Now, the first I knew that it had actually been launched was to read it in the Evening Telegraph today, because nobody has emailed the elected members of Dundee City Council about it. And I just checked my email, still no email. At the time it appeared in the Evening Telegraph, if you went, they had details of the consultation are available at firescot.gov.uk. If you went there, it said there are no open consultations, but I think that was corrected probably about an hour and a half ago, and it is sitting on there. But the point is, Mark, that there are 29 members of the Dundee City Council and there's only 8 people on this committee. The other thing, I think you said that the consultation, I've had a quick look on the website, now it's gone live. I think you said the consultation meetings in relation to Balmossy were on the 12th of August, but your website says they're on the 29th of July. So I think some clarity on that point would be appreciated. Actually, just to go straight to the website, Dundee City, location Balmossy, Tuesday 29th July, 2 to 4 p.m, 6 to 8 p.m, Broughty Ferry Parish Church, also known as Barron Hill St Margaret's Church, Guthrie Terrace. So it looks like to me it's the 29th of July, not the 12th of August. But my plea, Mark, is it was obvious actually when we had the what you alluded to, convener, the debate where we unanimously cross-party agreed our opposition to any downgrading or closure of Balmossy, that it was obvious that some councillors had been told different information or were more up to date than others. And I think it's really, really important that we have consistent messaging. So my plea to you is that hopefully before close of play tonight, all 29 elected members will be given the information regarding the consultation, so that it's a consistent approach. I would politely suggest that our colleagues in Angus are Angus Council, because obviously Balmossy covers South Angus as well. I think it would be helpful if similar was done to them as well. Thank you very much, convener.
Yeah. So, convener, will you allow me to come back for that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, big apologies, Councillor. Some of the data on the website will be correct. So the 29th of July will be correct, Tuesday 29th. I was working from a slightly older list. I've been on annual leave myself, and looked at the list I'd previously been provided with. So they've obviously rearranged that date to the 29th. So that will be correct. Whatever's on the website will be correct. Okay. And a big apologies that all the councillors haven't had direct communication that we were going live with the consultation today. That's something that should have happened. I'll certainly follow up with colleagues to make sure that does happen for both Dundee City and Angus.
That's much appreciated. Thanks indeed.
Yeah. So we're not heading over now then. Paul, is it for go through the report?
Thanks, Billy Keenan, and thanks, boss, for the update. Just to defend Mark a little bit, I do know that he is just back from annual leave, and the information that he's given is exactly the same information as I do. So yeah, we'll absolutely try and tighten up on that information and make sure that it is sent out to everyone concerned. So as far as Q4 scrutiny for City of Dundee is concerned, an overview, if that's okay, Billy Keenan, and then I'm happy to take questions. Overall, it's a positive report, obviously an end of year report effectively. 7 of the areas out of the 12 that we report on our agreed priorities are positive with green arrows, and happily we're reporting no fatalities in any of the 3 sections that are a possibility. So that is absolutely a positive within our headline indicators for the year. Specifically, priority 1, accidental dwelling fires. Incidents are down, as I've said, 0 fatal casualties. Non-fatal casualties is up, but we suspect that is a change in the way that the service wants our incident commanders to report on any kind of injuries at incidents. So we expect to see a slight uptick in that. And as I've mentioned at pre-scrutiny, we will be moving to a slightly different reporting method for next year. But I'll make sure that you're all cited on that, and that will be thoroughly explained to you in Q1. Out of the non-fatal casualties, only 9 out of the 36 that are reported for the year were removed to hospital for precautionary checks, and precautionary checks are light, so that could be light smoke inhalation or slight burns. So that again in itself is a positive despite the number. Priority 2, non-domestic or the business setting, a very positive report with reduction across incidents and casualties. No trends across any of the types of incidents that we had, and reduction in support activity is captured in the performance management section on page 11 of our report. Road traffic collisions in priority 3, a slight increase with incidents, but most have been noted to be low speed, low impact. No trends on locations identified, and only 1 incident out of the 13 that required firefighters to actually extricate a casualty. The 7 reported casualties for the quarter were removed to hospital again for precautionary checks. Priority 4, which is unwanted fire alarm signals. We are starting to see a plateau in the unwanted fire alarm systems because of the fact that the numbers are related mainly to a certain area of Dundee, the west end of Dundee, and that trend seems to continue where we have both the student setting and the hospital setting. So our legislative teams and crews indeed that attend these incidents do try to educate and support where possible. And again, a list of the top offenders of locations and causes is on page 15 of the report for further analysis. Priority 5 is deliberate fires. Deliberate fires within the Dundee Send continue to be a challenge. They are lower for deliberate primary fires, are lower than they were last year, but there's an overall increase in the same quarter for last year, if that makes sense. However, vehicle fires contribute towards that, and that's over 50% of those fires, or those types of fires. So in essence, all other categories of primary fire are down massively. And I know that Rachel's on the call and she's going to talk to this regards some positive police action to try and drive that down from their side. Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, James Hayes' team, in fact, have been working in conjunction and in partnership with Police Scotland also in some preventative work to try and drive down that activity. As far as secondary fires, we have seen an impact and we have seen, an increase in that. And that is despite the massive amounts of increased work that the community action team and operational crews have done. I would cite the expansion of the Dundee Schools competition, which has been seen as a great success. And indeed, in the last few weeks, we've seen 16 specific visits to schools in the north of the city, which is a targeted initiative in relation to fire-related antisocial behaviour. Alongside that, and a subject that may come up for question is the area around about derelict buildings, because they contribute to these numbers. SFRS has launched in the last few weeks a new form, an electronic form called a Community Intelligence Report, and that is shared directly with partners. So it gives that shared information, increased communications in a timely manner, and is designed to drive a collaborative approach to driving down that type of activity. I would bring attention to the appendixes as well, which again highlight the fantastic work of the community action team at the back of the report. And on that, Billy Keenan, I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah. Is there any questions for Paul on his report? I've seen many flooding in there, Paul. Can I maybe ask, just from the point of view of safety and the visits that you do around houses, have people engaged by way of putting the sort of smoke, heat and fire detection that all chatter to each other? You know, always concerns that, you know, people might well still be leaving themselves uninsured because you know, they've not really followed legislation. Although some of that's no need to be hardwired. I think they can battery operated ones chat to each other now. So is there any sort of feeling when you're doing house visits that's, you know, there's quite a number without?
So we've got a really strong partnership approach to that now, Billy Keenan. Referrals within City of Dundee are really strong compared to the rest of the country. We have got a really good network working across colleagues in all sectors, and so we have a very targeted approach. I think that would be fair to say, and we tend to prioritise now in relation to risk. So we target high risk. James is on the call from the community action team. They pick up the really immediate ones. They go to them on almost an immediate basis, and then some of that work falls to the crews as well. So the operational crews will go out. So once they're into homes, they assess and they install as necessary. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, I support that more targeted approach rather than just going into any house that asks for a visit to just fit detectors, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, that sounds good. At least you're picking some more up that have slipped in the net and haven't done so. So great. There doesn't appear to be any other questions for you, Paul. So you're getting off light today with a beer. Makes a change. Is this report agreed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul, and your colleagues. Willie.
Okay, thanks, Convener. Takes you on to item 7, Dundee Policing Area Quarterly Police Report, and Chief Superintendent Russell is on the call.
Good afternoon, Convener. Good afternoon, other committee members, and thanks so much for the opportunity to present the Q4 report in relation to activity across Dundee. So firstly, I'm delighted to welcome Chief Inspector Rachel Burns. It's her first attendance at a scrutiny meeting. Rachel's been in post for a number of months now, and before I hand over to her to take you through the report, just like to pass on my thanks to her for all the activity that she's been undertaking since her posting to Dundee. I'm sure she's reached out to you all, and hopefully many of you have had the opportunity to meet, but if not, that invite stands, and of course Rachel would be delighted to meet you and speak about specific ward area issues. So I'll pass over to Rachel. She'll take us through the report. I'll just highlight a very positive report for Q4. Lots of fantastic partnership work and significant proactivity that's taken place across the city, which you'll all have had the opportunity to see. A couple of wider strategic elements for us is the launch and rollout of body-worn video that we started across Tayside in March, which we start to see some significant benefits from in terms of our operational response, quicker footage and access for the Crown quick resolution for complaints, some of which, believe it or not, aren't quite as they appear from people that we engage with. So early resolution for police officers. And over a passage of time, we hope to see some de-escalation in behaviour towards officers and other emergency service workers when they realise that activity is being recorded. But we will see that as we go through the performance years and try and manage that. But fundamentally, the reports focus on the activity that we are doing to deliver against the Chief Constable's 2030 vision for Police Scotland. And I'll now pass over to Rachel, and then more than happy to take some questions at the end, if that's okay, Convener.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Chief Super. Yeah, as the Chief Super says, I've not yet had the opportunity to meet everyone here today, so it's nice to meet you all. Just moving to the report then, if I can refer to page 137 of your pack, I'll look to take you through our performance on a page section and just draw out some of the highlights for you there. Starting with Group 4, in terms of overall Group 4 offences, you will see there's a slight increase on last year to date. However, this is still 4.5% lower than the 5-year average. In terms of antisocial behaviour, again, a slight increase, but down by 14% on our 5-year average. We also recognise that not all of these crimes are reported to us, but our community policing teams are continuing to engage with their communities and partners to understand and tackle these issues and to respond quickly to ongoing and emerging issues as they arise. I'd just like to highlight here some of our youth diversionary work, particularly in the city centre. We've got initiatives running right throughout the summer and into October, building on the success of last year with the street soccer, but also with the added introduction of a skate park and a youth cafe. I'll touch on fire reason here, as Paul obviously alluded to. It is still an issue for us. I think it's probably fair to say it's now an established trend, and we work closely with our colleagues in the fire service, particularly in respect of the prevention side, the education side, and also into the investigation side. You'll see in the body of the report on page 152, it details some of the success we've had in detecting what is a challenging and complex crime. I'd also reiterate that from our investigations, these incidents do appear to be linked to disputes primarily between criminal associates, with a small proportion connected to acquisitive crime or indeed attempts to destroy forensic evidence. So our efforts are continuing to address what is a complex issue, but the risk to the wider public remains low. Moving on to crimes of violence then, the robbery figures, you'll see that there were 115 robberies committed in the last quarter, which is down significantly on last year, with a reduction of 25.8% and sitting at 22% lower than the 5-year average. The detection rate's also up on last year at 67%, and it's worth pointing out that a number of those still have active lines of inquiry, and so they're likely to have positive outcomes and further increases in the detection rate. It's still the case that robberies and assaults are usually committed by those that know their victims, and as you would expect, a great deal of them are unfortunately linked to drugs and the harm and vulnerabilities that underlie this type of offending. Likewise, serious assaults also down 16.03% on last year and 23% below the 5-year average, and with an improved detection rate of 75.5%. Again, positive figures. Our CID department take ownership of these inquiries to ensure we have a consistency of practice there, whilst also improving support to victims with referrals into partners. Common assaults, they're showing a very slight increase of 1.77% on last year, but still 5.3% below the 5-year average. We're carrying out analysis work continually to try to better understand what underlies these crimes so we can do more to prevent them in the future. And just moving on to public protection, so overall Group 2 crimes, you'll see there were 92 recorded rapes, which is down 7.54% on last year and 12.7% down on the 5-year average. Touching on domestic abuse, there were 1,707 crimes recorded in the year, slightly up on last year. However, again, gives us confidence that our victims are happy to come forward, knowing they'll be listened to, supported, and that their case will be fully investigated. The Domestic Abuse Scotland Act, as I'm sure you're aware, means we're able to take action against those who are engaged in controlling and coercive behaviour, as well as those who are physically abusive to their partners or ex-partners. It's a really effective tool or power for us to ensure our victims' safety. It does often take time to fully investigate due to the nature of the offences, so that detection rate at 66% is likely to improve as we carry out our inquiries, gather evidence and bring people to justice. Moving on to road safety then, speeding offences shows 227 such offences recorded, an increase of 32.74%. It's fair to say, I think, that each one of these detections acts as a deterrent and helps to make our roads safer. A lot of these will have been detected by our Road Policing Division and our Safety Camera Partnership, but we've also recently implemented joint patrols using primarily our probationary officers, working alongside road policing to give them exposure to this important area of policing and to deter and detect more offences. Drink and drug driving, again up 33.3% on last year, with 244 offences recorded, although slightly down on the 5-year average. Again, evidence that drink and drug driving is still going on, but we're actively pursuing that, whether that's proactively or reactively as members of the public report in with intelligence. Just on that, I'll mention the Summer Drink Drive campaign, which starts shortly on the 30th of June and will run until the 13th of July. So I'll update that on future scrutiny reports. So you may see an increase due to the extra proactive work, but there will be a lot going on out in the media to highlight that and to act as a preventative measure. You can see on page 150 of the report the results at the start of this year's Operation Challenge. Operation Challenge is our multi-agency operation targeting the antisocial and illegal use of off-road motorbikes and similar. This will run right through the summer period, and I just want to mention here that we now have a drone unit in Dundee, which I believe will be a really effective new tool for us in tackling this type of crime. But as you'll see from the report, we've already seized 3 vehicles and 9 individuals have been charged and reported for these offences, with other lines of inquiry still ongoing. Lastly, I'll just go on to acquisitive crimes. As you'll see, housebreaking, pretty static compared to last year, with an increase of 1 recorded crime, but our detection rate is up to 41.8%. I'm sure you can appreciate this is a difficult crime to detect, given that the perpetrators are often long gone and we have to rely primarily on forensic opportunities, which often have a significant time lag. So I think that is likely to improve still further in the coming months. Onto motor vehicle crime, we've recorded 648 offences over the year, down on last year and down again on the 5-year average. We've done a lot of work around prevention measures and education. Sometimes the thefts of high-value motor vehicles are linked to housebreakings and can be targeted from those outside Tayside or even out with Scotland. Frauds are down by 55 crimes compared to last year. A lot of that's down to education around online fraud, extortion and similar fraudulent crimes, which are often committed again by those out with the UK. But a promising downward trend, which I would say means that our education messaging is getting through to our communities and members of the public are listening. As you'll know, the criminals are getting more and more sophisticated in the types of method they use to defraud the public, but our local and national teams are alive to that and work to keep ahead on top of the latest trends and technologies being used. So we're continually updating our messaging to keep on top of that. Shopliftings are down 12.9% on last year, although up on the 5-year average, and have a detection rate of 40.8%, which is a slight improvement on last year. We recognise shoplifting as a high volume crime. The reasons are well understood in terms of the cost of living crisis, increased poverty and addictions, all fueling a rise nationally. We've obviously been working closely with retailers to improve security in stores, and we have had success in targeting a number of key individuals in Dundee who are repeat, persistent, prolific offenders, and there's work ongoing to obtain bail conditions and potentially criminal ASBOs for these individuals, which will give us yet another tool to target them more effectively in future. They're often high tariff offenders with complex needs, but we do have excellent, well-established referral pathways in Dundee with those for those with mental health addictions, poverty, etc., but can still be challenging as a result. As you're aware, our city centre policing team provides that high visibility deterrent in the city centre, and again has led to the reductions that are actually bucking national trends. And as you'll see on page 147, Police Scotland's recently launched a national retail crime task force. So that team aims to provide additional resource to local areas for a short, intensive period of time to mitigate against the impact on retailers and help us bring offenders more quickly to justice. So I've recently submitted a bid to the task force, so we'll hopefully obtain some support locally, and that will have an impact in Dundee. So overall, in terms of acquisitive crime, it's a very positive picture in terms of reductions in recorded crime and improvements in detection rates. And that is our performance on a page, a lot of positives against the backdrop of the challenges we continue to have with resourcing and ongoing call demand. So I'd say in summary that Dundee is doing a very good job in terms of our performance, but we're by no means complacent and are continually looking for how we can improve further. Just coming into the summer, our focus will be on the key areas that we know come to the fore in the summer period, such as antisocial behaviour, the use of e-bikes and off-road motorbikes, and tackling violence in both the public and the private space. The report's been circulated, so I don't propose to go into detail on any more specific points. As always, our report contains information about everything I've covered today, and shows there's a significant focus on early intervention and prevention. So hopefully you've all had a chance to read and digest the content. Thank you for your time, and of course I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment that I'll pass over for questions. I'm hoping that the use of your drone brings around the sort of e-bike, motorbike thing and gets it addressed fairly quickly. You know, sometimes there's endless damage done to our parks, and endless amount of people living in fear when there's noisy scramblers or whatever flying past them at horrendous speeds, knowing that that they're illegal bikes and probably aren't taxed or insured or roadworthy. But anyway, I'll pass it over to Billy McPherson.
Thanks indeed, Convener. And I have to say, I completely concur. Thanks, I should say, to both Nicola and Rachel for their input there. I have to say, I completely concur with the view. There's a lot of very positive information in this quarter's report, and I'm very grateful to Police Scotland for all their efforts in that regard. Rachel mentioned the very positive youth diversionary activity in the city centre, and I know on page 139 the similar diversionary work in Broughty Ferry, and noting the fact that, quote, we are conscious that Broughty Ferry can become a focus for youth-related disorder. Now, I know Rachel has met my group colleague, Councillor Craig Duncan, and undoubtedly discussed this. One of the issues that he's mentioned, and actually you touched on it in relation to the city centre, is about visibility. And I can concur with your view about the city centre, because any of us who are down the city centre regularly see that visibility. And I was just really wondering if you can give some reassurance in relation to not just Broughty Ferry, but any place where there is concern about youth-related disorder in the summer months, that there will be visible, and I'm thinking particularly of evenings and weekends, that there will be visible police patrols and so on, to give that public reassurance.
Thanks for the question, Bailey McPherson. Yes, so just to add to that then, Broughty Ferry, obviously, we're intelligence led. The intelligence tells us that Broughty Ferry becomes particularly a place where we know there are going to be challenges across the summer months. So we are alive to that and making sure that our patrols are directed accordingly. Obviously, we'll react as we know where new issues emerge and direct our patrols accordingly so that we have that level of visibility and assurance that helps with the prevention side of things. So yes, just to summarise.
That's very helpful indeed, and I'm grateful for the response. Thank you.
Councillor Short.
Thank you. This is perhaps live because it happened yesterday, but you were talking about beefing up the visibility and the retailing. I came down yesterday and we had mounted police. I've only ever seen mounted police when I've been at football, and I wondered, was that something specific? Was it because of graduation, or was it just a wee trial to see how the horses got on in the big city?
Thanks, Councillor. I have to say you've taken me aback by surprise. So I wasn't aware that they were there, I have to be honest. I'll look into it and I'll feed that back to you direct, because I'm now intrigued myself. I wasn't aware they were there. I don't know if maybe Chief Super had a...
Yeah, I've got to say I actually didn't know that they were here either, which probably doesn't bode well. All I would do though is signpost councillors to our Facebook page. And yesterday there was an update around some joint activity around driver awareness, cyclist awareness, and again passing people that are out on horses out in some more of our rural areas. So I can only surmise that they've stopped into the big smoke on their way past. But please don't quote me on that, councillor. But we'll look into it. And I know graduation was on yesterday as well, but we weren't policing graduation, if that helps. Certainly not with the use of mounted. We do use them for a number of events in the city, as you'll be aware. Obviously, when we have some of the large-scale football matches, we will use our colleagues in the mounted branch, and they're a fantastic asset and deterrent for us. But let us just pick that up off table and we'll come back to you if that's okay.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Black.
I like the idea of mounted police and drones chasing the e-bikers all around Strathmartin. Sure you'd be able to sort them out that way. I also like the idea of the drones perhaps picking the cyclist gently off the bike and dropping them into Bell Street into an open top cell. This is a fantasy, of course. More seriously, I had 2 police in my house this morning, and this is as a way of saying thank you. The police do turn up when you report crime to them, if they possibly can. My car was, window of my car was burst yesterday and people robbed things out of my car. So the police response was very prompt and courteous, and I thank you for it.
Sorry to hear you've had that trouble to me. Councillor Cruikshank.
Thank you, Convener. I would like to ask if there's any plans for expanding community policing in Dundee. We've heard from Billy McPherson about Broughty Ferry, but there are other areas in Dundee, and I would love it to go back to the community policing where they're engaged within the communities. And that young people and adults know who the officers are. That's the level of engagement that I'd be looking towards. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that question, councillor, and I'll answer that just because there's a national element to this. We are currently looking at our operating model as part of our 2030 vision, which is all focused around supported victims, less crime, safer communities and a thriving workforce. And one of the things the national team are looking at is, do we have the right people in the right place? Do we have the right resource in the right areas? Are we servicing our communities the way that we need to in response to the intelligence, in response to the demand and the high risk and the high harm? So we are looking at that. I guess just to provide you a little bit of reassurance, we have community teams across the city. So every Every area across the city has a community team. Obviously, the sergeants report into the inspectors report into Rachel. And we do try to be extremely proactive and engage across the city, as you'll see from the report that Rachel's provided. So that does happen. There's always more we can do, you know, completely recognise that. And there's always more that people want from us, and I really recognise that as well. But there's also a bit about us just ensuring the activity that we're undertaking and what we're doing is police activity, and that we are focusing on threat, risk and harm. So thanks so much for the question. I'll be sure to come back with updates around any proposed changes or any kind of amendments to our operating model in due course. We're just a little bit early for it just now, but please be reassured and reach out to your local community team, and Rachel will absolutely facilitate and support any kind of bespoke work to your wards.
Okay, Councillor Short, then over to you to catch the police out again.
No, this one is just a wee bit of a compliment. I can't speak highly enough of Kirsten Kiddy and the team out of Maryfield. Kirsten doesn't just do the community side of things, she's also responsible for the liaison with the bus company with regards to travel across the buses. And also we would have all seen recently very high profile with regards to some of the concerns about women involved in prostitution in the Maryfield ward, and I know that Lee and Martin are her trusty sidekicks, and you forever see them whizzing around the ward on their bikes. So from that point of view, and also they don't just cover the top of Maryfield where the station is, they're also down at City Quay as well, and we've got the city centre team. So certainly from my point of view, with the cover across the Maryfield ward, I've never felt that I haven't been incredibly well supported in all the time that I've been involved. So thank you. They're always there to be helpful and supportive.
Thanks very much, Councillor Short, and also Councillor Black. I'll obviously pass all that positive feedback on. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Okay, there's no further questions. Can this report be agreed? Okay, thank you. We'll move on then, Willie. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks very much. Item 8 then is internal audit reports, and Kathy Wiley's here to speak to that item.
Yeah. Notice that you've got about 6 reports here, Kathy. Would you like we'll move to questions, or do you want to make a comment on any particular one?
Could I just say a little bit about the sort of general trends, and then the only one that I really want to say very much about is the one that's limited.
Okay.
As you say, we've got 6 reports here, 5 with substantial assurance and 1 with limited assurance. Across all of those, we've got 31 actions. 25 of those actions are about design of controls, with only 6 of the actions being about the operation of the existing controls. And the actions are mostly around improving around documentation, undertaking reviews, monitoring of information, reporting that, and some training in one of the reports. There's also quite a lot of good practice, as you would expect, being identified because we've got so many of these that have got substantial assurance. The other thing just to say is that 23 of the reports have got, 23 of the actions are medium or low, with only 8 of the actions being high, and 7 of those high actions are for that report that's got limited assurance. I've also got Paul Kelly from Assets here because they undertake the IT work for us. And Paul will answer any questions that you've got around the user access management for Northgate and the Microsoft Office 365 item. Assets also undertook the risk management and insurance pieces of work, although it wasn't Paul's team that undertook them, so I will answer any questions you have around them. But those 2 were undertaken by Assets because David Vernon within my team line manages the staff who undertake the risk management and insurance work. But yeah, if you want to just move to comments and questions on the individual reports, that's fine.
Okay, we'll go for that as your suggestion, Billy McPherson. So,
yep.
First report then, access management, Northgate.
Yeah, I have a question in relation to that first report, and it's really about the point about staff user access. one of the conclusions is that should a review should be performed, and I think that's a good thing. Obviously, that it's important that user access is monitored and changed as required. You know, people leave, people change role, and so on. And I was just really wondering, and it may not be so much the auditors, it may more be corporate services, but has the review of staff user access actually taken place?
Okay, Anthony, are you looking to answer that?
Yeah, I think I'm probably the best placed. Thanks, convener, and thanks, Bill McPherson, for giving me the opportunity to come in. So I can say both audits were quite a long time ago now, and I want to say thanks to Paul from Assets for working with the officers to get those reports and those audits into a really good place for us to be able to provide a substantial answer. So I'm now confident that review has taken place, and I'm confident that there is a really good degree of assurances around the level of access for users. And I think the word super user is something that we get quite concerned about when it is used. I'm now given assurance that each part of our processes is broken down into various trunks, and no single user has access end to end against any of those trunks now. So I think I can provide some pretty good assurance, and that review has taken place. Thank you.
That's very reassuring. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions on that report. Microsoft Office 365, any questions on that? Billy McPherson?
Yeah, just a very quick one, because it's related to what I've just asked about. On page 160 regarding that, and it's again about controls and access to in this case Microsoft 365. It actually indicates that there was an active user for someone who had left the council, and I would have thought that it would be an automated thing that if someone is no longer on the payroll, someone's left, that they are automatically removed. And I was just really wondering if Anthony could give us some reassurances that we'll not have a situation again where you've got an active user who actually is no longer employed by Dundee City Council.
Anthony?
Yeah, thank you both again, and thanks for the opportunity. So I can give you those assurances, yeah. So when this audit was carried out, that process wasn't automated. So previously it was, and then when we brought in Office 365, it caused some disruption in that service. That process is now automated. So the only barrier we have now within that leavers process is the manager actively leaving the person through manual process. And obviously we can never get around that. But as soon as that person is left, those automated processes start to work in the background, and the financial elements of those processes are the ones that are stopped first. So yeah, I can give those assurances. Thanks.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Black.
Yes, the Microsoft 365 thing, this may be a bit wider than the scope of the report, but I have the impression that the Council has yet to fully take advantage of Microsoft 365 and all the programs within it. It can provide a really seamless working environment where only those people who are allowed to see certain documents get to see them and can work together on them and can edit them. And the people who are not allowed to see them are, don't even know that they're there. It's potentially a really useful thing and neater and tidier than the systems that we currently use. And I wonder if there is training, if there's a program, if there is some kind of development program in place which will enable us to really get the value from Microsoft 365 that it can offer. Because I feel at the moment we're not using it to its fullest capacity.
Not sure who's on that can answer that question for you, but certainly that's okay. Lindsay.
Thanks, convener, and yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Black. To give that assurance that we do, we've got for our desk-based colleagues mandatory training around the various modules within Office 365, and that's something that we keep a close eye on in terms of the completion of those and the feedback that we get around them. We've also got our Digital Champions Network, which we've recently done a refresh around, and that's been taken on board as part of 2 sessions that we've had during this year in conjunction with Anthony's service around helping us to think more strategically digital. So we did a session with our Leading Team Dundee network, which is self-nominated colleagues across the council, but also for our senior leaders as part of the leadership conference. So thinking about digital leadership, how to embed the skills and the aptitudes within teams, how to recognise different styles within all of that, and really encouraging the use of the digital champions, bringing them into senior management team meetings, and thanking managers for enabling their time and their efforts around this, which ultimately the whole team will benefit from. So there is a lot of work going into this, and we can also look at our adoption statistics around the Microsoft tools and see which elements are being used and are they being used in their fullest sense. So yes, we might be using Teams, but we might not be using all elements of it, to, as you described yourself, to their best effect. So we've got a number of initiatives around that.
Okay, Chief Exec's looking to come in as well. Greg?
Really keen, it's actually myself that was just going to add to, so thanks Lindsay for the helpful response. It was just to give Councillor back that assurance that we are all obviously using Microsoft 365 right across the council, but in addition to the training that Lindsay's described, is just to also give that assurance that there will be the opportunity for all elected members to have that same access to training, so they could still have the opportunity to use the tools as well.
Cheers for that. Does that satisfy you, Councillor Black?
Well, I think I look forward to the day when us councillors will be able to be shining examples of how to use Microsoft 365 very effectively. Actually, there are tools in there, particularly Microsoft Lists, which could be really helpful with things like casework recording. So, Kevin, I'm sure you and I will enjoy those training sessions together.
Bound to be. Me, I'm a dinosaur when it comes to that. I'm looking forward to reading Paul Thompson's first 100 days in office. Not about his stories, but he's involved in just about everything. Okay, is that report agreed? And we'll move on to risk management if there's any questions there. No questions on that one. Okay, insurance. No questions.
No, I do have a question. Yeah, I should first of all start off by saying I find the insurance team are very approachable and very good at getting back to you when you've got any queries. And I've got a specific question regarding one of the areas for improvement. It's on page 169, and it basically says that there's not a single claims management handbook in place. And I was just really wondering, and it may again be more for the service department rather than the auditor, but I'm just really wondering if that, if there's been some progress in relation to meeting that area for improvement.
Greg, or is it Paul again?
It's myself again, Billy Keenan. So, Billy McPherson, thanks for the question. So, my understanding is that whilst there's no single consolidated handbook in place in relation to this guidance, there are a multitude of different other guidance that's available. So, progress has been made to consolidate them. But I noticed Leanne Mara has put her hand up, so Leanne can maybe offer some further detail.
Yeah, Leanne.
Hi there, thanks very much for the question and thanks for your kind comments, Billy McPherson. We do have a claims handbook. One of the areas that was highlighted in the audit was that it was not all in one place, but we do have a SharePoint site for the team which details all the different processes for each of the different classes of business. There's certainly some improvements that could be made to that, but given the size of the team and the length of time everyone's been within the team, it hasn't been our greatest priority, unfortunately, because all of the staff are very experienced, ranging from 7 years to 24 years in claims handling. But it's certainly something we've taken on board, and we're already working to progress the items that were highlighted in the report.
That's very reassuring, Leanne. Thanks very much indeed.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is payroll, change in circumstances. Any questions on that? That'll be no. And the last report then, rent accountability and what? No questions. Is this complete report then agreed? Thank you for that. Okay then, Willie, we're moving on again.
Okay, thanks. Item 9 then is internal audit plan update and progress report. Again, Cathy Weil will be speaking to that item, which is for noting.
Looking to make a comment, Cathy? I'll see if there's any questions.
Just really, as you know, this is the progress with the plan and the progress with the implementation of the actions. And I just wanted to ask you for some feedback. I've added some columns to the tables that start on page 183, just to show you how many of the actions are still open and outstanding and how many have been closed. That was just on the back of some questions the last time. So it's just to get some feedback for whether you found that helpful, whether you think it's too cluttered now, or whether you would like me to leave that in the report. And the only other thing that I wanted to draw attention to was the fact that we have had quite good response to closing a lot of the actions in the last wee while, so that we have 28 actions have been closed, while I think it's 11 have been added and a couple have been reopened just until we've got enough evidence to close them. But a lot of the older actions have been closed in the last month, which is really good to see. But happy to take any questions and hopefully get your thoughts around that additional information.
Okay then, Billy McPherson, I'll let you go first. Sorry, you're on mute, Fraser.
Yeah, I know. I thought I'd pressed it, but I hadn't pressed it properly. Pressed it properly now. Anyway, thanks very much for that, Cathy. I think it is worth including. For the life of me, I sat thinking, what's CHM&L? So it might be worth having a wee asterisk and just something at the bottom. Anyway, that's minor. My question's really around the stuff that's in the 2022-23 open actions, which have a target for reporting, but there's still some open. I think there's 4 actually on pages 183 and 184. What's the process for chasing these up? Because you've got a target for scrutiny reporting December 24, one for December 24 revised to February 25. You get the gist of what I'm meaning. I'm just really wondering, I presume there's a process for ensuring that these actually end up getting closed.
Yeah, so these targets for reporting are the date for the target for reporting the report to Scrutiny Committee. They're not to do with the actions. And the process that we have, sometimes these are revised because for various reasons we haven't been able to get started on the audit when we initially planned it. Sometimes it's because we're waiting for responses from the services to the brief or the draft report or whatever. There are numerous reasons why audits don't stick to the time frame that we start out with when we do the plan at the beginning of the year. But that's what the target reporting date there is. We have team meetings every fortnight where we review where we are with everything and we chase people up if we need to after those meetings.
That's helpful. It's the fact it's chased up, because if I take one at random, health and safety incident reports reported presumably to Scrutiny Committee in September 24, no closed actions at the moment. And so it's just all I'm really, and there can be reasons for that. I'm not making a criticism. I'm just sort of saying, is there a process in place to make sure they're followed up? And obviously there is. So that's reassuring.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood your question there. No, in terms of the actions, we do have meetings about that, but there are also reminders sent to people around from Pentana to remind them that these actions are outstanding. But the other thing that you need to be aware of, and it was too difficult to get this all into the table without it becoming completely unreadable. We might agree an action that has a date for closure in a year's time, depending on the complexity of the action or whether it has other things that need to happen first before it can be fully implemented. So just because it's not complete doesn't mean that it isn't still on target for its timing. The tables that are at the end of this give you a bit more information about the actions that have gone beyond their original date and the actions that are awaiting a new date to be re-established because they've gone past the original date that was agreed. But I think it's 21, I think, that are still within their original targets. Yeah, there's 21 within their original targets, 24 that have had their target dates extended, and we have 14 that are needing new dates to be agreed for them.
Okay, that's very helpful, Cathy.
Okay, Greg or Paul or
Thank you, Bailey Keenan. It was just to offer some further assurance, Bailey McPherson, in addition to those actions that are chased to the individual that they're assigned against. We have biannual meetings through the Risk and Assurance Board that I chair, and that's all Council's Head of Finance. So there is that senior overview of any actions that are outstanding at a service level.
Most helpful. Thanks indeed.
Cathy, I'm happy with the other information that you've provided as well. Nobody else has made a comment, assuming that they're happy as well. Is this report agreed? Okay, thank you. Right, Wally, we'll move on again.
Okay, thanks. Item 10 then is Internal Audit Annual Report. And again, Cathy will speak to this item, which is for noting.
Yeah, Cathy.
Right, thank you. There are just a few things in here that I would like to just draw attention to. Obviously, as it says, it's a summary of the work that's been done over the year, and it includes my annual opinion. And my opinion is that there's reasonable assurance that can be placed upon the adequacy and effectiveness of the Council's framework of governance, risk management and control for the year to 31st March 2025. There's information at section 2 on page 207 about the various sources that I used to come to that opinion. And I'm also required to confirm to you that there were no limitations of scope placed on the audit work by management during 24-25. There are one or two other things that the standards need me just to draw to your attention, so I'll just run through them quickly. At 4.2, there's confirmation that the service was independent of the activities that were audited, as we've already discussed, because we've got people in my team who've got the line management for risk and insurance. These audits have been carried out by assets just to maintain that independence. There haven't been any changes to the internal audit team during the current year. We did make some changes to the plan, as usually happens. There were some items taken out of the plan altogether. Some have carried forward into next year's plan, and there were some new items added. When we make these changes, there's always a risk assessment undertaken just to make sure that we're not removing anything that has a high risk and that we should be keeping in the plan. We have continued during the year to make some improvements to the way that we use Pentana in terms of following up the actions, which goes to the question from the previous report. And there is more information going to people in the services around what is happening with the actions that are still outstanding.
Okay.
We only had a few that had limited assurance. We had 5 items at 6.5. You'll see the items that had limited assurance, but there's been reasonable progress with the previous year's limited assurance, although we do still have a couple of items in terms of general ledger and the financial sustainability of LACD, where we have some open actions still to be completed, but some of them have not reached their due date yet. So that's back to the question that we had previously. There's 2 audits that are carried forward from previous years that are still in progress, and 2 that are at draft report stage. And we have 7 from the current year 24-25 plan, which are not complete, but 4 of these are at the draft report stage. So we're substantially further ahead at this point in the year, this year, than we were in the previous year. I've already discussed the fact that we've had quite a lot of the older actions completed, which is good. So we're in a good position in terms of progress with that. And there's information there around the governance and risk management opinions. Again, we've had audits in both of those areas, which have been useful for me in coming to my opinion. I need also to confirm with you that we comply with the public sector internal audit standards, which we do an annual internal review of that. There's an external review, which I had hoped would be reported to you before now. I've actually got a draft report, which I'm just going through for factual accuracy, and I need to have a discussion with the reviewer, and then we'll be able to get that report to your next meeting. And the only other thing to say about this report is that it has, at the end of it in Appendix C, there's my own action plan in terms of the items that were brought forward from last year, the stage of progress they're at, and the new items that have been added from the work we've done this year. But I'm happy to take any questions you've got on that.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any questions for Cathy on this one? Billy McPherson.
Yeah, just briefly, thanks very much. It's all, and it may well be more for Judy Dobby or the Chief Executive. You mentioned the limited assurance from previous years, Cathy. 6.6, it touches on both general ledger and financial sustainability of leisure and culture Dundee. It's the latter one that my question's about. It indicates all the actions remained open as of the 9th of June, when undoubtedly this report was written, with the end of June and September being dates for completion. What I was just really wondering was if there are actions that are closed by the end of June, which is obviously imminent and almost upon us, will elected members be advised of these prior to hopefully the whole thing being closed off in September?
We can do, but I think there's maybe other people who could give you a more up-to-date position of where we are with that.
Okay. Paul or Greg?
Yeah, thanks, convener, and thanks, Bailey McPherson. Unfortunately, I don't have that level of detail to respond to your question, so if you can leave that with me, and I'll speak to Judy and then update all scrutiny members.
Okay.
That's absolutely fine, thanks.
Thanks for that. There's no further questions on this, so is this report agreed? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on again.
Okay, thanks very much. Takes you on to item 11, Annual Governance Statement, 31st of March 2025. It's a report by Paul Thompson. You're asked to give the proposals.
Paul, you want to say anything on it, or?
No, nothing further to add, but happy to take any questions that there are, Billy Keenan.
Is there any questions for Paul? Is that Billy McPherson?
Yeah, just a very brief one. It's probably more for Roger Many than Paul. On page 229, it talks about the review of the council standing orders and says that it'll come to city governance in June 25. Well, clearly it didn't. But I noticed that in the city governance papers for Monday past, it indicated that it had August as the date. And I was just really wondering if we could have confirmation that we will get the recommendations in relation to the review of council standing orders immediately after the recess.
Is there many able to answer that? Is there someone else?
Thank you, convener. I can respond to Bailey McPherson and give you the assurance that you're seeking, Bailey McPherson.
That's most helpful, Roger. Thanks indeed.
Okay. No further questions then. Is this report agreed? Okay, then we'll move on again.
Okay, thanks. Takes on to item 12, the unaudited annual accounts. You're asked to give the proposals.
I notice the papers have got plenty that they've picked up on the unaudited accounts, but is there any questions or comment that an officer would want to make in the meantime? Okay, Billy McPherson.
No, I just wanted to say a positive thing. I mean, I think it's well laid out and very readable, but fundamentally, I'm very well aware of all the amount of work that officers have to put in to get this into the time scale that they need. And, you know, I just think grateful thanks for all the efforts that officers have put in to ensure that this has come timeously to us.
Okay. But exactly, that's a lot of work goes into getting this prepared. Paul, I think you'll do a briefing on audited accounts, or are you waiting on the audited accounts for a briefing to members?
Thanks very much, Bailey Keenan, and thanks also for the feedback, Bailey McPherson. So I can confirm that the plan is to undertake a briefing for all members in advance of the audit coming back to committee. So we'll reflect on any issues that are identified during the audit. But if there is any specific areas that members would like to be covered within that briefing, then by all means, please contact us and we'll ensure that those are reflected in that briefing later in the year.
Okay, no further questions in this report, agreed? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on again.
Okay, thanks. Takes you on to item 13, Audit Scotland Best Value Thematic Review, report by Chief Executive, and I'm aware that Rachel Brown and her colleague Jennifer Grant from Audit Scotland are on the call, and it may be you would wish for Rachel Brown to speak briefly to that particular item.
Okay, you want to go for that then, Rachel?
Thanks very much, Bailey Keenan. I'll just very briefly cover the paper. Your cover paper in the agenda papers sets out the key messages of the report. This is the thematic work that's required in the external audit of all councils this year. The Accounts Commission has requested that service transformation is covered at all councils. We have requested that each council supply 2 case studies, because this work will, as well as me reporting it to you as Dundee City Council, it will inform a national thematic report by the Accounts Commission on the Scottish picture of service transformation and how far councils have gone with that. And the intention is that those case studies provide essentially a library of examples that other bodies can review and draw on to see what might work for them. The exact format of sharing that is under consideration, so I don't know if that will appear in a good practice hub. We're trying to build up a library effectively of good practice that can be drawn on. So how that works is under consideration. But Dundee City Council were asked for 2, they supplied 3, so we're very grateful for that. And you'll see case studies within the report there. It covers the areas of transformation planning, of programme management of transformation, around how the council works with partners and engages with the community, on service transformation, because obviously significant changes to services will have the impact on service users and the wider community. We also looked at the impact on inequalities of transformation work, and lastly looked at the impact of transformation. So as I said, the key messages show that you are in your 6th phase of transformation, so that's embedded now in council processes. And we've made 3 recommendations for improvement, which are around the level of ambition. Transformation isn't necessarily around saving money, but it's a significant tool in addressing the financial challenges that local government and indeed the public sector more widely face. So one recommendation's around that, another is around reporting, particularly to elected members, to ensure you have an appropriate oversight role for transformation, and lastly to continue to roll out the benefits tracker approach, because that new approach on defining and measuring the benefits of transformation projects is relatively new and needs to be embedded. So those are the areas for improvement, and I'm taking any questions on the audit or on the best value thematic approach at this point. Thank you.
Billy McPherson, I see your question, is it? No,
that's the previous one.
Previous one, okay. Yep. Is there any questions for this particular report? Or I take it officers will have agreed the recommendations and will implement?
Yes, just to say we've got an agreed action plan at the end of the report with timescales that we are satisfied with. Thank you.
Okay, can we agree this report then? Thanks very much, Rachel. Okay, we're moving on again.
Okay, thanks. Item 14 is committee self-assessment and annual report. You're asking the proposals, and Cathy Wiley will be speaking to this item.
Yeah, Cathy, is this the one where you tell what off for only 2 people completing a survey?
I wasn't going to do that, but that's fine.
Feel free. Come on, don't take the hard time all the time.
So this report is complies with the good practice that SIPFA has for audit committees, and it's an annual report summarising the work and the assurances that have been presented to the committee during the year. And so I'm just looking here for you to review that draft report and determine if there are any amendments that you want to make, because it is a report from yourselves to those charged with governance, and also to agree the actions that have been identified and to agree to submit this to the next City Governance Committee subject to any changes you want to make. In terms of the actions, they're at 5.1, and I can't get my cursor across there to see them. So one of those is to consider how best to facilitate the self-assessment next year, just to make sure that we do have more than 2 completions of the survey. And also what the other thing that was identified that was that the provision of some treasury management training would be useful for members, and so we will arrange that as well.
Yeah, maybe when I get my Microsoft training, I'll be able to dish out the gold star to me and Fraser for that. Okay, Councillor Short.
Yeah, I was just going to use confession is good for the soul, Kevin, because I obviously wasn't one of the 2. I found it really hard and then I ran out of time. So that would be my feedback. Could you make it less complicated in the future?
What I was thinking was we're using the checklist that SITFA themselves have published as the checklist that they're recommending be used, and so what I'm thinking is that it might be better if we had some sort of workshop to go through it first before we ask you to complete it, just to kind of help and explain any bits that you're struggling with.
Thank you.
It's not a bad idea, Cathy. If it gets with that bit of more engagement, that'd be worth doing.
Yeah, and can you get me 26 hours in the day?
No, I can't do that, sorry.
I thought there was that already. I said, no, it's more than that.
Okay.
Okay, is this report agreed then? We'll take on board the comments. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on again then, Willie.
Okay, thanks. Item 15, annual report on complaints, a report by Chief Executive, and I believe that Andrea Calder may be speaking to this item, which is for noting.
Andrea.
Thank you, Convener.
So, comment?
Just quickly, I'll just do a very quick introduction. So I would just draw your attention very quickly to section 5.1 of the report. That gives you an update on the key KPIs. Obviously, they've all improved, so we're pleased with that, but we do know this is a continued area of focus because it's not at the level we would want it to be. So you'll see that closed for both have improved on last year, and the average number of days for both have improved. You'll note that complaints have dropped slightly, so they've gone back to what we would say would be the kind of average and normal annual level. At 5.4, we've explained about the new complaint system that's been implemented, and we hope that will help us with some of the improvements. And there's been additional training around how we should be handling and just reminding people of timescales. Section 7 of the report brings in compliments, and Appendix 2 highlights transactions, because obviously you'll be aware that there's a significant number of transactions dealt with by the council, and obviously complaints is a very small proportion of those transactions that are dealt with very well, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Billy McPherson.
Just a brief comment to say, Andrea, how pleased I was to see the improvements reported in 5.1, both in terms of complaints closed within target time and average time to close complaints. I think that's it's a positive trajectory, really, isn't it? So I think that's very, very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good. Okay, is there no further comments? Is the report agreed? Thank you for that. Right, Willie, the last one, mate.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for that, Convener. Remaining item 16, local government benchmarking framework. This was considered at City Governance on the 12th of May.
Yeah. Okay, we've seen it on the 12th of May. Is there any fresh questions? Okay, is this report agreed? Thank you for that. Okay, thanks for your patience. Hope you enjoyed your afternoon. We'll catch you all the next time. Bye.
Thanks again.
Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your summer.
Thank you.
Well.
Bye.